Hello, I'm Brendan from Nostalgica Coffee, and during the warm summer months, sometimes we like to brew our coffees cold for a more refreshing drink. And one method that works really well is cold brew. Now, as you may know, there are lots of different ideas and advice on how to brew the best cold brew. So, we thought we'd spend some time exploring the outer reaches of cold brew to find out first what doesn't work, and then quickly kind of zoom in so we can lock in on what does work. So to back up, I thought it would be helpful to talk about what cold brew actually is so you kind of understand the why behind the results that we found. So cold brew in essence is an immersion style brewing, which is distinctly different than percolation brewing. So percolation is the camp that your home electric drip coffee maker would fall under, your pour over brewer. But with immersion brewing, we only have one pour followed by a steep time. Whereas with percolation, we're continuously pouring or pulsing water, and that accelerates our extraction. With immersion style, because we have one pour and a steep, our extraction kind of climbs and then basically plateaus. You could argue it slowly goes up, but eventually it plateaus pretty quickly. Whereas percolation, it kind of just accelerates before plateauing. It does plateau. So what that does is it gives you kind of a wide range of good results because it's not really changing that much after a certain point. Yeah, so I thought it would just be helpful to understand what cold brew actually is. Now one tidbit I will add is that with cold brew, you're brewing with cold water instead of hot water, which is why you need like 24 hours of steep time because cold brew is, or cold water is not an efficient way to extract coffee, unlike hot water. Now backing up to the study that we went over, because it wasn't that official. What we did was we brewed like 25-ish different styles of cold brew. And we wanted to try cold brew on fine grind sizes, on medium, on coarse. We tried all sorts of different steep times ranging from 12 hours to 60 hours. So we created a matrix basically of different results. And we will release some charts to go with this so you can visually see how it all went. So back to our exploration of cold brew. What we did find is that there are a few things that didn't seem to work very well. And that is steep time. So we found that once you passed about the 50-hour mark or so, yes, you can still make good cold brew that way, but we found diminishing returns that most of our brews didn't get better. We also found that cold brew ground on very fine grind sizes, picture like espresso grounds, was so kind of heavy and bitter that we sort of just threw those out in the camp of not optimal. It's not to say you couldn't brew cold brew that you like that way, but it's unlikely. To the contrary, cold brew brewed with very coarse grind sizes, like the size of small rocks basically, yielded results that were really weak. And since we were brewing a concentrate, once we diluted, we just found them to be a little bit too light-bodied and weak compared to what we think most people would enjoy. We also found some patterns. Cold brew that we brewed on more fine grind sizes, like medium fine, had a heavier body. It had lower acidity, and but the flavor notes were muted. Like everything was just kind of a little more muddled together, and which is intuitive and makes sense because the fines will kind of make their way through the filter into your brew, which will increase the body and decrease the clarity. We also found that cold brew that was brewed with more coarse grinds, like medium coarse, had higher clarity, lower body, and more acidity, a little more brightness. So what we were looking for is to kind of combine the best of both worlds and find something in the middle that had high sweetness, that had high clarity, but also had like body that would hold up to, maybe you want to add a little bit of milk to it. So that was the goal that we were trying to reach when we were brewing it. It was something that would be a crowd pleaser that most people would enjoy. So let's get to the brewing process. So we have, as you can see, our Fellow Ode Generation 2 and our Comandante, which we feature a lot on our websites because these are popular grinders that do a really good job that many of you, or at least some of you, have at home. We used Columbia Yorner Muscara, which is like a citrusy type of bean, which we found worked really well, and it was really refreshing. And we used our Hario cold brewer, which you can find on Amazon, and they're really easy to use, and they look cool on the counter. So that's the material that we used. Now for our recipe, we used 85 grams of coffee. I'll get to the grind size. And we used 700 grams of filtered water. I would recommend half strength third wave water, which you can find on Amazon. Now for a grind size, we found that we liked coffee that was ground in the medium coarse range. So this would probably be similar to what you like if you are brewing batch brew on your home drip coffee maker. So it's really hard to communicate grind size. There's not really a language for that. But on your grinder, it's likely you're going to be in the most coarse third of your grinder, but not all the way to the end, if that makes somewhat sense. So on the Fellow Ode, we like it on 7, and on the Comandante, we like 27 clicks. So now for our recipe, we're going to use 85 grams of coffee. And that may seem like a lot of coffee, which it is. We pretty much fill this all the way up, and we fill this mostly all the way up. But cold brew lasts for like at least 10 days in the fridge. So we felt most people would enjoy having multiple servings. You could make almost a week's worth of cold brew. So that's kind of why we did a larger brew. So we're grinding on 7 on a Fellow Ode, which is a little coarser than usual, medium coarse. All right, so now we have 85 grams of coffee, medium coarse, and we'll just dump it into this cartridge. Okay. And the lock on the top. And this is where I deviate from the manufacturer's instructions. You can lock it into the lid, but it makes it so that the part of the coffee ground sits slightly above the water, which I just don't love that. So I have a little hack. We'll get to that. And then we're going to add 700 grams of filtered water. Alright. And I like to just plunge this into the water. And lock on the top. Eventually it will kind of sink to the bottom. And hold down this, it doesn't shoot off like a champagne cork. Alright, and just give it a few shakes to get the extraction going. And there you have it. You can just set it on your counter. You don't even need to refrigerate it for 30 hours. So get cozy. So now that our brew is complete, it's been about 30 hours, we're going to serve and enjoy. So just do a 4-to-1 ratio. So I will fill this up to 100. And then I'll add 25 grams of cold water. Sweet. There you go. Happy summer.